All right, first things first, what I wanted to do was put this out into a framework where it was easy for you guys to understand using steps. So the first thing that we did was we've arranged this into a 9-step process to help you guys order this in an operations manual in your head. So you're like, okay, this is the first thing I'm gonna do all the way to number 9, right? So step number 1, we wanna find comps within a date range. Now, again, we are looking for comps that are no older than 6 months. Guys, I can't stress this enough. If you're using older comps, you have to ask yourself the question, why are there no comps? Why are there no recent comps for me to be able to use? And if there are recent comps for you to use, why are you using an older one? Are you trying to justify a value that no longer holds? A lot of times that's what happens with wholesalers. You guys send a comp from 2023 or even a comp from 2022, ignoring the comp from 2024, the more recent comp, because the values have gone down. Don't do that. That kind of gymnastics is what's going to get you in trouble with your buyers. So 6 months, even better if it's within 90 days, but the rule is plus or minus 6 months for your comps. Now, if you are using older than that, adjust. Markets fluctuate, markets change. For example, July of 2022 was the peak of the market. We've had fluctuations going downwards since then, but after we sort of bottomed out towards the end of 2022, mid-2023, the market started to trend back up again. So we know that in 2023 up to 2024, the market started going back up. But in 2022, we definitely hit a peak and went down. So keep these things in mind. Make adjustments if you have to use old comps, but really don't use old comps. And if you have no comps available, maybe it's not a deal for you to actually want to chase. Think about that. All right, step number 2, narrow down the comps that you're going to use. So again, we want to make sure that we're pulling comps from within the same subdivision. How do you know you're in the same subdivision? Don't cross any major roads. When we're going to go back to the free Zillow app, I'm going to show you guys how to comp on that again. Again, the thick yellow lines, right? Those thick boys, don't cross them. If you're crossing them, that means that you've likely went into another subdivision. If you're in another subdivision, your comps are going to be less accurate. That's when we have different build styles, different builders, different materials used, different lot sizes, all the things, right? So make sure, stay within the same subdivision. We want to stay within the same property type size, right? So within plus or minus 250 square feet is the maximum. We don't actually sometimes even want to get to 250 square feet. Like that's the outer range. But try to stay within plus or minus 100. Once you go beyond that, the dollar per square foot comparison really skews. You'll see this when you've got the largest house in a neighborhood. And many of you guys have tried wholesaling the largest house in a neighborhood before, and you find yourself getting into trouble because you see the best comp that you can find, maybe 1,000 square feet smaller than the largest house that you have under contract. So then you take the dollar per square foot and you multiply it by your square footage and you get this astronomical value that doesn't make any sense. So again, that's the reason why appraisers won't go beyond plus or minus 250 square feet in size, because the dollar per square foot starts to skew. So stay within plus or minus 100 square feet to the most 250, but plus or minus 100-ish square feet, you're gonna be in good shape. All right, narrow down to property type. That means we wanna compare houses that are the same property type. So if you've got a single-story rancher, compare it to another single-story rancher. If you have a 2-story home, compare it to another 2-story home. If your home is a historic home, compare it to another historic home in the same historic district. If you have a mid-century modern, compare it to a mid-century modern. I can't tell you how many times I've had people send me a house built in 1950 that's not a mid-century modern. It's like a mid-century rancher, and then they're using a mid-century modern comp, and they're trying to justify value. It doesn't translate. So same property type. And how do you know you got the same property type? Open your eyes. Look at them. They look similar, right? Like you see a similar, like very cottage style home or a Tudor style home or a colonial. You can tell by their visual characteristics. The front elevation will essentially tell you if you have the same property type. So just let your eyes do the storytelling for you. Now, plus or minus 10 years in build generation. So we do not want to compare houses that are outside of each other's build generation. Why? Because technology increases every plus or minus every 10 years, right? And that's what appraisers are using as their guidelines, except for the late 1800s and early 1900s where not a lot happened. I mean, we were still figuring out how to brush our teeth and, use electricity and things like that. So it wasn't that good of a time, right? So back then, you can still compare a house from like 1890 to 1910 or 1920. But once you get to 1930 and beyond, technology really started to escalate, and it escalated quickly. So plus or minus 10 years of construction in comparison, and you'll be safe. All right, step number 3, look at the market direction. This one is really important right now, especially in the time that I'm recording this video. So I'm recording this video pre-election. You might be watching this post-election, but many of you guys are going to remember what it felt like at the end of October in 2024, when half the country thought the world was going to die. Actually, the entire country thinks the world's going to go to crap, but each half thinks that it's going to go to crap if the other side wins, right? And so you got buyers who are like, I'm not buying a house until after the election. And then you got homeowners that are like, or retail buyers who are like, I'm not buying a home until after the election. Well, when things like that happen, the sentiment, what's going on economically, how do people feel right now? You got to take into consideration things like COVID, things like hurricanes, extreme weather. This is important for you to understand because it might make you have to adjust your pricing. Now, even though the market comps haven't changed, plus from before a hurricane and after a hurricane, buyers might not be super interested in wanting to buy there right now, unless they get a really good deal. So you got to take these things into consideration. They're going to definitely adjust your offer number. So look at what's happening geopolitically, socioeconomically in the areas that you are working. And you can see what's happening in the market by looking at actives and days on market and pending. So take a look at what is active on the market right now as a remodel. How many days on market has it been sitting there? Or are they going under contract fast? If the days on market are low, houses are going pending quickly, you got a hot market. That means that buyer sentiment in that area is going to be pretty robust. But if you've got a whole bunch of remodeled homes that are beautiful, they're active, sitting on the market, no action, price reductions, been 90 days, 100 days, your buyers are going to see that and they're going to say, maybe something's going on in this area. Maybe I don't want to really do a flip here right now. So take a look at the actives, take a look at the pendings, and definitely look at the days on market. That tells you what's going on in the area and what's happening in the market. All right, step number 4, lot size, zoning, and any land characteristics, right? So this is really important to think about because I have been able to create a deal where a home had absolutely no exit strategy on it as a fix and flip until I looked at it for its land value based on its zoning and size. And then all of a sudden I was able to create $300,000 in value just by looking at the property from a different perspective, from a different lens. And that's by checking its zoning, right? And so sometimes you want to look at what's the lot size? What are the zoning characteristics? Can something else be done here? Am I in an opportunity zone? Is this a great place for redevelopment? Could I create a land assembly here and maybe put 3-4 plexes together and make a parcel for somebody to come and build apartment buildings? Now you're starting to think outside the box and you're starting to take a look at what's going on with the land. That's absolutely going to adjust value for you. So it's important that you understand how that could possibly happen. So let's take a look at what lot size means in terms of property value. So in homes over $500,000, lot size is way more important and it's more valuable. So an extra 5,000 square feet on a home over $500K could be worth $30,000, $40,000, even $50,000. But in a price point below $500K, it might only be worth $5,000 to $10,000. So you have to look at the property value and then see what's going on with respect to the lots and how is the larger lots, how is that framing into pricing over there? Are people doing additions? That's another thing to pay attention to. What's the play in this area? See, for instance, in South Scottsdale, you had a lot of 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom homes, which really isn't conducive to the modern family. But what people have done is because those homes were sitting on larger lots, most of the renovations that are happening over there are addition plays. People are coming in and doing a primary bed and a primary bathroom addition. They're adding like 400 or 500 square feet, and it's completely changing the property value. So by looking at the lot size, its zoning, and its characteristics, by checking what are the project types happening around in the area, that's going to tell you how valuable the land is. And it's going to tell you what people are doing. So if people are just flatting the entire home, demolishing the entire thing, and building new, you'll know that based off of what's going on the zoning and what's happening in projects nearby. So pay attention. Number 5, the adjustments, right? So here's where we need to make adjustments based on property characteristics. So, for instance, a bed might be worth plus or minus $10,000 to $25,000 depending on the price point. Again, for lower price points, $500K or less, bedroom's gonna be worth about 10 grand. In higher price points, over 500K, bedroom might be worth 25 grand, so pay attention to that. Bathrooms are gonna be worth plus or minus $10,000. Parking and garage will be worth plus or minus 10 to 25K, and that will be dependent on climate. We'll get into that in a further step, but pay attention because a garage could be worth 10 to 25,000, a carport could be worth 5 to 10,000, and I'll tell you when it's worth the higher number in a moment. The next thing you want to look at is, are there any special characteristics with respect to views? So here's something that people in Southern California, even here in Arizona, we have to pay attention to. In those areas that have hillsides and views and beautiful homes on the hillside overlooking the city, well, not every home on that block is going to have the same view. And better views are going to be worth more money. A view could be worth anywhere from plus or minus $100,000 up to $1 million depending on the price point. So be very mindful of like what's the line of sight where your property is. And if you are in an area that has views, only compare homes on the same street. You can't even cross the street because across the street it's going to have a completely different site. You have to compare homes on the same street and pay attention if there's different grading there either, because you might be on a hill where you're grading completely down and you might be on the same street, but the houses at the top of the hill are going to have vast more views based on the houses on the bottom of the hill. Again, this is where I see wholesalers make big mistakes, where they start thinking that the values are equal up and down the street. And because we're using 2D screens to look at these things, just pay attention. Go open up the street view. Walk up and down the street. Look, is this a hilly area? Do the property pictures show me views? Do they show me that I'm on a hillside or close to a hillside? This will help you get really dialed in on how you're establishing value for that specific characteristic, like a nice view. Step number 6, adjust for traffic and commercial and multifamily. So again, based on price point, $500,000 or less, you're going to take off about $10,000 for backing or siding traffic or commercial and multifamily, and you'll take off approximately $20,000 for fronting traffic, commercial or multifamily. If you're over $500,000, that's when it changes. So if you're siding or backing, it's going to be 10 to 15%, not 1,000%. And if you're fronting traffic, multifamily, or commercial over 500K, you're going to take off 20%. That's going to be a massive hit. I see wholesalers make mistakes here all the time as well. They forget to make that adjustment for traffic, and traffic will definitely get you. Step number 7, here's something new that you guys haven't seen yet, and it's understanding climate or special considerations. So for instance, Arizona, we have terribly hot summers here, and that makes garages very, very valuable. It also makes carports very valuable, and that means having a garage in Arizona could be worth $25,000 instead of $10,000. Having a carport could be worth $10,000 instead of $5,000. And the same goes for colder climates. Let's take Illinois, for example. A garage in Illinois would be worth $25,000 because of the snow. A carport in Illinois could be worth $10,000 because of the snow. So in hot or cold climates, parking is going to adjust up. It's going to be more valuable because covered parking will be more valuable to the buyer, making the demand for that characteristic even greater. So pay attention to those nuances in the market that you're in. Look at the area. Are there seasonal temperature changes where they're extreme in the summer or extreme in the winter? And does that mean that they have certain things in a property that make them more desirable? And that will mean that it'll have more value there, right? So pay attention to that. All right, number 8, basements and ADUs. Now, in markets that have basements, not all of them do, but in certain markets with basements, and these are typically cooler climates, basements can be very valuable to people, but appraisers may only give you up to 50% of the value for basement construction, and that's if it has been finished to the same level of quality construction as the main floor. So, if you're looking at a basement and it's got those, those floating ceilings, you know what I'm talking about, right? Those commercial grade floating ceilings. Yeah, that's not the same grade of construction quality as the upper. That means that an appraiser is going to look at that and say, this hasn't really been upgraded to the same level and the same standard. I'm not going to count this. I'm not going to count this in the square footage. And they're well within their rights, because by appraisal rules, they only take square footage above ground. So they are not required to use basement square footage. They may give it to you, and if they do, the max they're going to give you is 50%. And the same thing goes for guest houses. So if you have a guest house or a casita and it's not on its own parcel, the maximum value that an appraiser will give you is plus or minus 50% of its square footage value. So if the guest house is 500 square feet and it's finished to the same level of construction as the main home, they'll give you an additional 250 square feet in value to your property. So be careful, because when you're selling homes with guest houses or ADUs to fix and flippers, that's going to be a sunken cost, because it doesn't cost them half the money to fix that part up. They're going to still spend the same amount of money fixing up the guest house, but they're only going to get 50% of the value. Same thing with a basement, right? That's why when real estate agents are, saying to you, oh my God, the basement is worth so much money, or the guest house is worth so much money. As a person in our business doing fix and flips, not all the time. Now, here's the caveat. If you have an ADU that's on its own title, that has its own deed, that's dollar for dollar, right? So if you got a square footage value of $150 a square foot, the ADU will be worth $150 a square foot. So if you do have, and that's in certain areas like Southern California and Seattle, parts of the Pacific Northwest, where they've started to allow titled ADUs, that's gonna have dollar for dollar equal value. And then the last step, guys, is to take all of these steps, make all of the adjustments, take in all the considerations, and then calculate our ARV. So I know this might seem like it's more, but it's not. It's just a little easier for you to understand. It's now in a step format so that you can know and check the boxes as you move along. But I'm not just going to leave you there. We're going to take a look at a few properties, and we're going to use these steps and these rules to determine their value. So let's head over to Zillow right now and do that. All right, so we're going to use two different methods to comp here. One, if you're at your office and you are using a laptop computer, I'm going to show you how to comp on Zillow using your computer, but I'm also going to show you how to comp on Zillow using your phone. And I actually find this really handy because I'm out in the world a lot. People sending me deals all the time. If you're out looking at properties or looking at projects, or you're at work and you need to comp a house real fast, you can do it on your free Zillow app on your phone. So let's do it on the phone. First one. All right, so we're gonna go to the Zillow app. Amazing. First things first, wanna make sure that I go to recently sold. Okay, so this is gonna give me recently solds, which we need to see. And then I'm gonna enter in my property. So first property is 5745 West Osborne in Phoenix, Arizona. Now remember, step one, we want to make sure that we're looking at comps within 6 months, right? So I'm going to go right here, and I got this awesome filter, sold in last, and I can move that to 6 months. Boom. See how many? Look at that. If I go any, it's going to show me 100 results. I got a mess. I got to go through a whole mess of properties, and I'm going to be looking at so many different ones. No bueno. I go to within the last 6 months, and bada bing, bada boom. Only 20 houses to look at, so that's great. Now, I could even go in and change all of these to like maximum year built to be the same, but I'm not going to do all of that. That's just going to take too long. And then I'm just going to make sure that's showing me any price. Great. So let's see the results. Okay, so my property is here on Osborne. Now, I want to make sure that I'm narrowing down within the same subdivision, right? So that's same step number 2. I want to stay in the same subdivision. And so that's going to keep me really in this Maryvale pocket. Now, I do know that 59th Avenue is a pretty major road. Thomas is a major road. I can tell you that this Indian school is going to be probably my major line. Osborne being a little bit of a thinner line. So my subdivision is going to be probably within Thomas to Indian, and then I'm going to stay within 59th to 67th. I mean, that's a nice little pocket, but I do know this whole area to be Maryvale. Now, again, I want to look at the roofs, and I want to make sure that we're not having major changes in the area and in the neighborhood as I go across. And also I want to make sure that I'm in the same subdivision or neighborhood name. So back to my home, over here at 5745 West Osborne. I just want to check the neighborhood that I'm in. And it says that I am in the neighborhood of Maryville. All right, so if I'm over here, let's just say like over by my boundary, let's just say this one over here on the left of 59th, what neighborhood am I in? Still in the same neighborhood of Maryville. So I'm in the same area, which is great for me. Now, let's take a look at my property characteristics. So I have a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 1575 square feet. So I want to go up to at most like 1700 square feet and as small as 1400 square feet. And I want to stay in that little pocket, right? So let's take a look. So over here, I've got this 385. It's a 3.2. It's much smaller, which is something to keep in mind. So there's another 385 here, and this one is closer to my size. See that big discrepancy? We have a 385 and another 385, and this one is 1,410 square feet. So I'm probably gonna stay on this property. Now, I need to look at some of the other characteristics to make sure they line up. Let's look at the year build. This is a 1960 build. When was mine constructed? 1973. Mine's a little newer, so that's better, but it's a little off. So I'm probably gonna keep looking for a better comp. Let's go back to this 385 and see when this thing was constructed. 1970. So that's more in line with my subject property. But this is a smaller one with a larger price, so I might even be able to say that I'm worth a little bit more than the 385. Let's check this 410. Now that's too big. That's 1844 square feet, so I'm not gonna be that large. I'm not gonna be worth that much, but I'm still in this 385, possibly 390, but not touching 400. I don't think it can touch 400. Let's check this 393. Way too big. That's not making any sense. Check this 365. 1410. Let's look inside of that. Okay, not super remodeled. You can see it's all pretty dated in here, which is a good thing. So now I know that my property is definitely worth more than 365. It's worth likely more than 385, but I've got a few things I need to make adjustments for, right? Remember, I'm on Osborne, which is a bit of a busier road. And I can also see that by going to the street view here. And, don't be shy to walk the street, guys. Just have a look and take a look at the road. See that yellow line here? That yellow line tells me this is a busier road. You can see all that traffic there. Also, I'm right across the street from what looks like commercial. So I'm on a busy road. I'm in front of commercial. That's all going to adjust my values. So all of these are important to keep into consideration. So now, I don't have parking. That subject had parking. I'm on a busy road, so I got to make adjustments for the parking, and I got to make adjustments for the busy road. So the busy road in a property under 500K is worth what? $20,000. Carport, we're in Phoenix, the climate, it's hot. So the carport's going to be worth another $10,000. So I'm going to take 30 grand off. Right now, if I have a 385 ARV and I got to take off $30,000, that gets me to about 355, 360. So I'm going to say the ARV on this one is about 360. There's no basement. There's no ADU for me to take into consideration. So 360 is going to be my ARV for that one. Now let's head over to the computer and take a look at some more. All right, let's take a look at Zillow on the computer now. All right, so I was just sent this address, 3007 West Redfield Road in Phoenix, Arizona. And this is a patio home. So take a look at this. This home is in this little section here, and we can see all of the roofs are the same. And so I need to pull my comp from this community. Okay, I can't go over here. I can't go over here. None of these other, like the main roads won't matter, subdivision, none of that. This is where I pull my comps from. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. This is where I got to pull them from. Okay, so that's going to make it really easy for me, but it also could make it hard if there's not any recent comps. We still don't know yet. But we got a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1146 square footer. This estimate on this is $275,000. The patio home was built in 1976. It's a single-family patio home on a 2,600 square foot lot. Makes sense? Okay, now here's what I love about Zillow. See right here, we've got our subject, and then it's got these two comps right over here. Well, that's already pulling from this specific complex, which is great, right? So if I go up a little bit further here and I look at the quick comps that Zillow had provided, right there, as we can see, these are all in the same complex. Now, we have a sale from 28 days ago at $257. Ooh, for a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1146 square foot. This is a model match. That's like 20,000 less than our estimate. So let's look at the condition. So looking inside, it looks like it's got laminate flooring, decent. It's a decent kitchen, but it's not renovated. So this is an original, and it's got like, you know, some of the older carpet on there. It's probably got some skin cells or dog hair. You know what I mean. But, you know, not terrible, but definitely not like upgraded, right? So original condition, $257. It just sold in October, but that tells us a little bit about the value here. So let's dive in a little bit farther into this complex. I want to just make sure we're only seeing comps from 6 months. Here we go, right? So we put this on 6 months. That's great. Hit apply. So this is only showing me what's sold in the last 6 months. Let's check out this 275. So we have a 275 sale, but it's 200 square feet bigger. Let's look inside. And it's renovated. Whoa. So it's active right now for 325. So these guys are trying to sell this. Let's look at when was this bought for 275. So got it. So look what happened. Somebody bought this in July for 275, put a little bit of paint in it, and now they're trying to resell it for $3.25. They haven't been successful yet. So these guys bought this a little bit tight, but it's something to pay attention to. So I'm not necessarily taking this active at 325 as super serious. And also this sale, I think, was a little bit foolish. Let's check out this 300. So we got a 300 sale, and it is original. And when did that sell? In October, so just recently as well. So what's the dollar per square foot for original? We can figure that out real quick. So 300,000 divided by 1340, that's $223 a foot for original condition, which is what we've got right here. Now this is a 3.2. I believe our subject is a 2.1. I'm going to just go back and make sure that. Yep, our subject is a 2.1. So we actually have to take that into consideration as well, because that was a little bit of a lower price, right? And so we have a 3.2, so that we got to take 20 grand off of the 300. So that gets us to $280,000. Multiply that divided by the square footage of that property, which was 1346, and that gets us to about $208 a foot. So 208 times 1146 is about $238K. So this thing would be at the ARV of this, or as an original sale in original condition, is probably worth about $240. But in order for this to be a deal, for us to be able to flip this, which is where we want to see what these things sell for when they're fully done. So if we have any sales here for something fully done, and there we got another 257 sale for a 2.1, and this is just from October. So I think that settles it, guys. This actually, you can't deny this sale. This sale right here at 257 is original condition. Now it's got, a little bit of upgraded flooring in here, but other than that, it's pretty original. I would say that if 260 is where this thing would sell at, as a wholesaler, you'd probably want to buy this thing at like 180, right? So ARV on this would be about 260. Wholesaler would probably want to pick this up around 180 in order for this to be a deal. But now again, going through our steps, right? We don't have to narrow down the subdivision because we are already in the subdivision. We're using comps from the same complex. we looked at actives. And again, we can go look at actives right now to see where the market is trending. That's why I know that for our square footage, we have to be somewhere in that 180 mark for this to make sense, right? Now, in addition to that, lot size, not really important because we have a patio home here and everything is going to be in the same little area, so that's not going to make any special considerations. We adjusted for the bed and bath, and we don't need to adjust for traffic or multifamily or anything like that because it's all there. There's no climate considerations for us to take into consideration, no basements or ADUs for us to think about. So ARV on this is what Zillow had thought, about 260. As a wholesaler, I'd probably want to pick this up for 180. All right, let's take a look at one more. Let's see. 305 West Alamo in Chandler, Arizona. All right. We've got a 5-bed, 2-bath, 25 square foot home. This was just bought by yours truly at $391,000. Now, the estimate on this is $525,000. So I got a decent deal, but I want to see what the ARV is on this thing so that I can figure out where I got to price this property. Now, again, I love Zillow because, look, it gives me all of these quick comps. Now, I probably wouldn't want to cross Elliott Road. So for me, number 2, disqualified because it's across Elliott. Elliott is a major street here. And I want to disqualify number 4, okay, which is Summit. So number 2 and number 4 are disqualified. So what stays? Number 5, which is a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1886er that sold at $527,000. So it's about 200 square feet smaller than my subject, and it's right by my subject here, 312 West Marlboro. And then number 1 would probably also be a comp, this 565, which is, like right over in our subdivision as well, in this Amberwood subdivision. So, and that's a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1917 square footer. Let's see the year of construction on this thing. My year of construction is 81. 7,500 square foot lot. Let's take a look at that. 85, 9,200 square feet. So it's a little newer, but it's still within a build generation. And it's a little bit of a larger lot, which I think gives it maybe in the $10,000 in value. So 550, maybe 560, because we're a little bit bigger, is seeming right. Now I want to go through my steps. So I know I'm in my subdivision. I got my comps in my sub. I've got my lot size figured out. I need to see where the market is trending. So now what I want to do is I want to look at what is active in the area. So let's go to for sale, hit apply, and then I just use this little arrow here and it'll take me right into my area. Boom. So what's active? I got a 550 active for a little bit smaller. Is this renovated? Yep. Okay, so that tells me that makes sense. How long has this been on the market for? 50 days, so not great, but also, I mean, it's not a terrible remodel, but it's very lived in, right? So these kind of get a little bit harder to sell when you got a purple room with pandas on it, you know? But it's a nice house, don't get me wrong. It's just that it's a little bit harder because it's custom and, you know, and it's got a pool. Got to take that into consideration. So that knocks me down. So the market is trending at a 550 with a pool not selling. So that might get me down to like 540 now. So that was really important for us to have seen this. And then what else do we got? We got a 499 on the same street. What does this look like inside? Okay, so this is original. So that's good. So an original sold at 500. And then just looking at this 450, it's much smaller. It's original. Oh, it's a mess. Here's a 500. And that's got a pool, and it is also slightly upgraded, not fully upgraded. So I think the 540 range is still in line. Now, we don't got to take into consideration any ADUs. We don't have to take into consideration any additional climate considerations because all these houses had garages on them. We don't have to take into consideration any traffic or multifamily. So it's fair to say that by looking at where the market is trending and by looking at where things sold at, that we can call this a 540 ARV. All right, we'll do one more, guys, and then I think you got it. So let's check this one out here at 6909 North 71st Drive in Glendale, Arizona. All right, we got a 5-bed, 3-bath, 2912 square footer, and it just sold for $400. Now, looking at the quick comps, number one here, we've got something really close in square footage and bed bath count that sold at, geez, 520. Okay, so 520 seems to be like it could be the ARV. Number two here, it is across a major, so that's not, I don't love, but if I look at the elevation of this house, that almost looks like a model match. So it almost looks like this is the same house, just, across the road, which happens a lot in these master plan communities. But it's a little bit bigger. So let's dive into this one. Let's see if we can get more detail on this. So this doesn't look super remodeled. Definitely lived in, but not like remodeled. This was built in 2003, 8,800 square foot lot. It's in the Orangewood Estates. So maybe that can help us to see if we are in the same area here. Let's dive down a little bit, see more facts and features. So this is Morningstar Estates, not the same subdivision. So can't use that one. So we're still in that sub where the 520 is. So 520 is looking pretty good. But let's see if we can get any more price acceptance on there or verification here. And this 530, that's not anywhere even close to our subdivision. So, or our style of property. This is much older. But this does, that comp right close to us is pretty helpful. So I think, for the size, square footage, we probably have about a 520 ARV on this. Let's look at actives just to see where the market is trending. We have a 535 that is 300 square feet smaller than our subject, and it has had some updates in it. Let's dive in. And 119 days. So this thing was listed at 550. They dropped it to 535. It went pending immediately. 6 days later, it pending. And then it fell out. And now they're trying to rent it too. So these guys are not desperate. They're not going to tank the market by underselling this thing. They're just going to rent it for $3,000 a month. It looks like, if they can't find a buyer. So I'm pretty certain that we can say that the market is trending to like a 520 to 540-ish area. This did go pending at one point, so that's good. So 520 to 540 would be the ARV on this. So again, looking at the steps, we want to make sure that we're staying in our area, that we're narrowing down, we're making consideration for any lot variations, adjustments for bed, bath, adjustments for traffic, commercial, multifamily, that we're taking into consideration things like pools and garages for climate markets like Arizona or really cold markets. And then if there's a basement or an ADU, we're noting that. Nothing for us to note in these specific examples. And so that's where we get to our step 9, which is calculate the ARV, which would be between 520 to 540 on this specific house. So guys, I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this. If you did, do me a favor and share this video with 5 friends. Be a good person, get some karma points in the bank, and anyone who you know that might be wanting to get into real estate and wanting to learn how to value property, this could be a great video for them to learn by. Now, if you're wondering where can you get your hands on all of these steps, step 1 through 9, I did something nice for you. We made a document, and it's in the description. You can download it right there. I would recommend you print it out and put it everywhere. Put it in your office, in front of your desk, on your desk, put it like right in front of you. Put it in a PDF in your phone. Have it available at all times, because committing these steps to memory is like, it'll make you really good at comping, right? So learn these steps, share this video with 5 friends, and then also leave me a comment below and let me know if you'd like to see more content like this, and also if there's anything that I missed, maybe a special consideration in your market that I could bring into the next iteration of these appraisal rules. Do me a favor, guys, like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in maybe another year after I update this again. Peace.